ہر پھول نرالا ہے. افسوس مسلمانوں عاشور کو مقتل میں، افسوس مسلمانوں عاشور کو مقتل میں. قرآن کے پروں کو نیزوں پہ اچھالا ہے. ہر پھول نے سر دے کے اسلام کو پالا ہے. زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے. آئے موت کبھی تو نے زینب سے نہیں پوچھا، آئے موت کبھی تو نے زینب سے نہیں پوچھا. 18 برس کے سے اس شیر کو پالا ہے. ہر پھول نے سر دے کے اسلام کو پالا ہے. زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے. بس قبر ہی زہرا کی ڈوبی ہے اندھیروں میں، بس قبر ہی زہرا کی ڈوبی ہے اندھیروں میں. حالے کے مدینہ میں ہر سمت اجالا ہے. ہر پھول نے سر دے کے اسلام کو پالا ہے. زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے. زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے. محمد صلی اللہ
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. شام کی عورتوں ایک وعدہ کرو، شام کی عورتوں ایک وعدہ کرو. روز قبر سکینہ پہ آگی تم، شام کی عورتوں ایک وعدہ کرو. جب تلک لوٹ کر میں نہ آؤں، آ کے شمع جلاؤ گی تم شام کی عورتوں ایک وعدہ کرو، ایک یثرب کی تھی شاہزادی، اس کا ساقہ تھا عباس غازی، مشک لے کر گیا سوئے دریا، اور قبضے میں کر لی ترائی، لوریوں میں یہ سچی کہانی، روز اس کو سناؤگی تم شام کی عورتوں ایک وعدہ کرو، ہم نے زندان سے پائی رہائی، اب بہن پاس ہوگی نہ بھائی، بات اتنی سی بس یاد رکھنا، میری بچی ہے غم کی ستائی، تم نے بازار میں تو ستایا، اب نہ اس کو ستاؤگی تم شام کی عورتوں ایک وعدہ کرو، جب کبھی قید خانے میں آنا، بے ردابی بیوں کو نہ لانا، تم کو اصغر بھی دے گا دعائیں، اس کی تنہائی کو یوں مٹانا، چھوٹے چھوٹے سے بچوں کو لا کر پاس اس کے سلاؤگی تم شام کی عورتوں ایک وعدہ کرو، روز قبر سکینہ پہ آؤگی تم بر محمد والے محمد صلوات
اللہم صلی علی
مظاہر
محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
اللهم صل على
بانو کہاں تلاش کرے اپنے لال کو، جنگل میں مار ڈالا ہے زہرا کی آل کو، بانو کہاں تلاش. زینب کے ساتھ روتی ہیں سب مل کے بیویاں، جب دیکھتی تھی روز وہ وقت زوال کو، بانو کہاں تلاش. شبیر دل کو تھام کے غش کھا کے گر پڑے، دیکھا جو خون میں غرق نبی کے جمال کو، بانو کہاں تلاش. شبیر میرے پاس ہے صدقے کو بس یہی، جھولے سے لا کے دے دیا بانوں نے لال کو، بانوں کہاں تلاش. بازار شام میں وہ اسیروں کا قافلہ، عابد نہ بھول پائے کبھی اس خیال کو، بانو کہاں تلاش لیلا دعائیں کرتی رہی باد کربلا یا رب جدا نہ کرنا کسی ماں سے لال کو بانو کہاں تلاش بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات
حبیب خدا ختم الانبیاء محمد و آل محمد صلوات نعرے تکبیر نعرے رسالت
نعرے حیدری حیدری پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات
صلی اللہ محمد
نعرہ تکبیر،
اللہ اکبر
نعرہ رسالت،
یا رسول اللہ
نعرہ حیدری۔
یا علی
خوشنودی فاطمۃ الزہرا سلام اللہ علیہا پر باواز بلند صلوات
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد معجل فرج
رحم الله من قرأ السورة المباركة الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق الأجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ثم الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين سيما ولي الله الحجة ابن الحسن صاحب الأمر والزمان اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم إن الله يرضى لرضاة فاطمة ويغضب لغضبها صدق النبي وآمنا به زينوا مجالسكم بذكر محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. A second of your loudest salawat to hasten the reappearance of Maulana Sahib al-Amri wa Zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ahibai, you find that from one of the greatest sermons to be delivered in Islam is the sermon of Sayyidati Nisa al-Alameen Fatimah al-Zahra alayha salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And from these two khutbahs or sermons that she delivered upon the martyrdom of her father is a khutbah in Masjidun Nabawi known as the khutbah Fadakiyyah. Ahibai, this khutbah of Sayyidati Nisa al-Alameen which she delivered in Masjidun Nabawi is an entire summary of Islam. 23 years of the message of Risalah that Rasulullah came with. You find that Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen captures 23 years of this Risalah within this one khutbah. And it becomes important, and it becomes our responsibility as followers of Ahlul Bayt, as the Shias of Amirul Mu'mineen and Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen, that we study this khutbah fadakiyah of Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen. We take interest to read what did Sayyidat Zahra say within this khutbah. There are ma'alim, teachings of ma'rifah and treasures and secrets of the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within this khutbah fadakiyah of Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen on one hand. And on the other hand, you find the jihad of Sayyidat Zahra, the reason for her jihad and the mannerism of her jihad is encapsulated within this khutbah fadakiyah. And I want to discuss with you one aspect of the khutbah of Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen and describe and go into a tafsir of this one aspect of this sentence made within the khutbah of Sayyidat Zahra. The narrations tell us that even the manner in which Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen entered into Masjid al-Nabawi, the hadith says that she covered herself in hijab. And you know, ulama and mufassirin have come forward and said that Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen would wear 7 layers of hijab. This haya, this protection of your dignity and honor and chastity. She comes out of her house fully covered in hijab, and the extent of the hijab is such that it is dragging onto the ground. And she comes out of the house surrounded by women from the Bani Hashim. She enters into the Masjid al-Nabawi, and inside the masjid are the people of Saqifa together with the Ansar and the Muhajirin, and she commands for a curtain to be drawn into that masjid, a parda, a hijab. And the curtain is put between her, a curtain is placed between her and the rest of the Ansar and the Muhajirin. The narration mentions that she delivered the entire khutbah from behind this hijab. Do you look at this aspect of wilaya takwiniya that happens? The narration mentions that as she stood behind the hijab, the first thing that she did is that she sighed a sigh of grief. And that sigh of grief had so much pain inside it. This sigh had so much hurt inside of it. It showed how much Sayyidah Zahra was hurting inside. This sigh of grief resulted to the people in the masjid weeping for Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. So sometimes when you see somebody cry, you can cry for their crying. You can cry for their grief. But for Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen, this is an aspect of, this is a type of a wilaya takwiniya. In that from behind the hijab, she sighs and she weeps. And for this sighing, the rest of the companions in the masjid sigh. These are umur that show us the divinity of the women of the house of Ahlul Bayt. Similarly, wilaya takwiniya, Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra had wilaya takwiniya. Wilaya takwiniya is power over the entire khalq. The narration mentions that when she came to Kufa as a prisoner after Karbala, and they are being brought into the city of Kufa, Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra delivered the khutbah in the markets of Kufa. The narration mentions that when she stood up to give a khutbah in the market, the people are looking at the sabaya, the prisoners. Some of them are weeping, some of them are shouting, some of them are pointing fingers and talking to each other. They're in the market. There are ajalakumullah animals, sheep and cattle in the market. The Maktal mentions that Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra, when she stood up to deliver the khutbah, she did an ishara. She pointed at the people with her hands. The people went quiet. The Maktal says that even the bells around the necks of the cattle or the cows or the sheep stopped ringing with an ishara. It's umur. And these are secrets, asrar, that show us the daraja, the adama of the women of Ahlul Bayt. For the hadith mentions, the historians mention, and know that this khutbah fadakiyah, which we have today, was conveyed to us by Sada-e-Zainab al-Kubra. There is one narrator of this entire khutbah, and this was Sada-e-Zainab. She is the one who narrates it for Ibn Abbas, and if you return back to the sanad of this khutbah, it returns back to Sada-e-Zainab al-Kubra. Sada-e-Zainab at that time was no more than the age of 5 or 6. She memorized this entire khutbah of her mother, and she delivers it for people to record and to narrate. As Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen begins her khutbah and praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and reminds the people of the greatness of Rasulullah and the achievements of Rasulullah and how he was responsible from removing them from the brink of Nar Jahannam and granting them hidayah, and she praises and describes the Quran. She reaches a point in her khutbah where she says to the people, the Ansar and the Muhajirin, فَلَمَّا اختار الله لنبيه دار أنبيائه ومأوى أصفيائه ظهرت فيكم حسيكة النفاق. Sayyidah Zahra says, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose for his prophet the final abode for Rasulullah, the final abode of the Anbiya, and the final resting place of the Anbiya, yani when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised Rasulullah to Jannah, Rasulullah left this dunya. As soon as Rasulullah left this dunya, she says, ظَهَرَتْ فِيكُمْ حَسِيكَةُ النِّفَاقِ. The evils and the hatred of nifaq, hypocrisy, began to become apparent amongst you. Allahu Akbar. So the words of Sayyidah Zahra. As soon as Rasulullah left the dunya, Entum ashab Rasulullah, this hypocrisy that was hidden within you, she uses the words of Sayyidah Zahra, each and every word, kalima requires tadabbur. She uses the word dhaharat. Dhahara, yani like the way you have dhuhur, to become apparent. Meaning what? Before this apparent display and exhibition of nifaq, this nifaq was hidden in the hearts. So long as Rasulullah was alive, they couldn't show this hypocrisy. She says, as soon as the Prophet left, what was hidden inside your hearts has now become apparent. Dhaharat. Number 2, hasika. Hasika yani this naqd. Hasika yani this evil and this hatredness, this malicious behavior, which is accompanied with hypocrisy, nifaq. Tayyib. In order to understand the words of Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen, ya ikhwani, what does the word nifaq mean? Nifaq, hypocrisy, and the word derived from nifaq, another derivative, munafiq, a person who conceals hypocrisy within his heart, a hypocrite, yani munafiq. What did Sayyidah Zahra mean when she said to these companions of Rasulullah? She was addressing the companions of Rasulullah. There is no ikhtilaf in this. There is no dispute within this. There were the Ansar and there were the Muhajirin. These are people who had fought with Rasulullah, who had prayed behind Rasulullah, who had fasted in Shahrul Ramadan and everything else they did with Rasulullah. Yet Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen said, ظَهَرَتْ فِيكُمْ حَسِيكَةُ النِّفَاقِ. Tayyib. Who is a munafiq? What is the alamat and the sifat of a munafiq? It is important for us to understand the alamat and the sifat of a munafiq for 2 primary reasons, ahibba'i. Number 1 is that if we understand what is the sifat and the alamat of a munafiq, we try and work hard to make sure that we ourselves do not have these sifat of the munafiqeen. Yani tazkiyatun nafs. If I want to purify myself from nifaq and from kufr and shirk, I have to know what these entail such that I protect myself from these. Number one. Number two, it is important that we learn the alamat and the sifat of the munafiqeen such that in the environment in which we live, in the communities in which we live, if we come across people who are trying to mislead us and misguide us through their hypocrisy and through their nifaq, we are able to recognize them from the sifat that is granted to us within the Quran and within the Hadith. Few years back, we had given a tafsir of this statement of Sayyidat Zahra by understanding and by examining the traits of the hypocrite from Surah Al-Munafiqeen. There's an entire surah within the Quran, Surah Al-Munafiqeen, revealed on the companions of Rasulullah. And there is a proper, in-depth explanation into the qualities and the characters of the Munafiqeen. فإحنا this year, we want to examine two characters of the Munafiq from within the Quran outside of Surah Al-Munafiq, from Surah Al-Nisa. And to support these two verses of the Quran, we have two hadith of Rasulullah, or two hadith from Ahlul Bayt. And it is important. Our manhaj, our path should be a path of ilm, should be a path of burhan. And it is important that when we formulate arguments, the burhan or the dalil that we use from the Quran and we also use from the hadith. Because Rasulullah said, Inni tarikun fikum al-thiklain, kitabullahi wa itrati. And therefore, we shall come and we try and examine this concept of hypocrisy and nifaq and that of the munafiqeen using the kitab and using the hadith. All this with the barakat of salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. You find that our first point of reference, Surah An-Nisa, verse number 142. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Sifatul Munafiqeen. How to identify a munafiq. Or if I want to see, wal ayadu billah, that I have characters of nifaq inside of me, what I need to do to clean myself. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Innal munafiqeena yukhadi'una Allah wa huwa khadi'uhum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed, the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, they try to deceive Allah. وَهُوَ خَادِئُهُمْ. But Allah deceives them. Now this is you could say a sarcastic usage of the word. Allah doesn't deceive anyone. What is meant over here is that they think that they are smarter than Allah, but Allah is smarter than them. Tayyib, the first alamat from this. وَإِذَا قَامُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ قَامُوا كُسَالَى. Allah. The Quran says, Surah An-Nisa, Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran that from the first sign of the munafiq is that when he stands up for salat, he is lazy in his salat. Kusala. They are lazy in their salat. The time of adhan comes in, the time of salat sets in, they are reluctant to come into salat. They are lazy when it comes to salat. Ya ahibba'i, salat amududdin, Rasulullah used to say. Salat is the central pillar of the deen. More than that, ikhwani, Sayyid al-Shuhada Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, on the day of Ashura, at the time of Zawal, in the middle of harb, in the middle of a war, stands to recite Salatul Jama'ah. A lover of Imam al-Hussein, a Husseini, is at the top of his game when it comes to Salat. Which is why in Ziyanat al-Waritha, we stand up and we say, Ashhadu annaka أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة يا أبا عبد الله. I bear witness that you established the salat. A Husseini always recites salat because he knows, had it not been for this jung of Imam al-Hussein, I would not have this salat today. Sometimes you find that the fitna and the fasad, when it comes to the azah of Imam al-Hussein, people try and make it as if you have to choose between salat and azadari. Habibi, there is no choice between this. Abadan la. Salat complements azadari, and azadari complements salah. Habibi, your azadari, your matam strengthens your salat. Your salat strengthens your azadari. Through azadari, the daraja of your salat increases. Through salat, the daraja of your azadari increases. These are hand in hand. Do not listen to these voices of fitna and fasad. Come and tell you this is more important and that is more important. Abadan la. Ashhadu annaka qad aqamta as-salat. Ziyara of Imam al-Hussein, Ziyarat al-Warith, is an attestation of azadari. So you see that within the azah and the salat, there is no ikhtilaf between this. There is no conflict between this. It goes side by side. Had it not been for Imam al-Hussein and the azah of Imam al-Hussein, the salat would not exist today. And it is this salat that strengthens this institution of azah. For therefore, Ahibai, you find over here that Allah Azza wa Jalla within the Quran comes and outlines that one of the sifat of the munafiqeen is that they are lazy in their salat. They are reluctant within their salat. We have a hadith al-sharif by Imam al-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, where he says, imtahinu shi'atana fi awqat as-salat. Everybody claims to be Shia. Everybody claims to be a follower of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Imam al-Sadiq, they came and they said, how do we know who is truthful in their claim and who is not truthful in their claim? Imam al-Sadiq says, examine our Shias during the time of Salat. A person claims to be Shia, see on the time of Salat, where is he? Is he on the Musalla, getting ready for Salat? No, busy in the dunya and in the world. Distractions of the dunya. More than that, we have tawqi' from Maulana Sahib al-Amri wa Zaman, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, where he sends la'na ajib. Imam al-Hujjah sends la'na on the person who unnecessarily delays Salatul Maghrib in particular until the stars come out in the sky. This has the ahamiyat of Salatul Maghrib in particular. Therefore, Ikhwani, I say to myself, before I say to anybody else, we have to make a constant effort to try and improve our salat, improve the quality of our salat. And this begins with this discipline of trying to recite salat as much as possible on time. Sahih, there are times where situation is not within your control and so on and so forth, but the person always makes this active effort that salat is on time. Ba'd, وَإِذَا قَامُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ قَامُوا كُسَالَى يُرَاءُونَ النَّاسِ. Number 2, it says that the sifat of the munafiq, from the characters of a munafiq, is that they are show-offs. They like to show off their good deeds. And particularly when you connect it over here with salat so that the entire tafsir is accurate over here, they themselves are lazy when it comes to salat, but when they attend the salat and they recite the salat, they like to show off. For you have the munafiq who likes to show off. Inshallah, Allah keeps us safe from nifaq, and inshallah, intum jama'a shabab, people of izzah and sharaf and iman. But to recognize the sifat of the munafiq is the one, when he comes into the mosque, he comes with the tasbih, and because he's in front of people, his kunut is the longest kunut, and his ruku is the longest ruku, and his sajda is the longest sajda, and the Allahu Akbar, the one in the last end of the mosque, and remember, they can hear that Allahu Akbar. The same person whose salat is so long and so beautiful, mashallah, in public, when he goes home, that same salat is recited in less than a minute or two. At home, his salat is very quick, like the blink of an eye. But when he's in public, la abadan, takes care in his salat and lengthens it. Why? He likes to show off. He wants people to look at him and say, this one is a mu'min. But the question over here is that the salat in public, is it the same as the salat in private? This is the question. See, the munafiq is always with his misbah and in the form of dhikr when he's around people. Are you also having that misbah, or are you also having that dhikr when you are in private? The ibadat that is done in private is more important than the ibadat that is done in public. In fact, right now we have within the seerah of the ulama that on purpose they would avoid doing their ibadat in public places. On purpose. Why? Because they do, out of ihtiyat, to protect themselves from riyah. They would do the bulk of their ibadat in the darkness of the night, in privacy, where they are not in the eye of anybody. They don't want somebody's wah and subhanallah and mashallah. Abadan. I'm not saying, ahibbai, that it is wrong to do ibadat in public, or that tomorrow if we see anybody in the mosque doing long salat, we point fingers and say, this is that munafiq Maulana was talking about yesterday. Abadan. Both you and I will get into trouble. No, we don't want that. For ourselves. Before we point the finger at anybody outside, now we point the fingers to ourselves. We look at our own salat. Do we do this or not? Alamat from nifaq, alamat of the munafiq. See, ikhwani, show off, riyah. There are a number of psychologies behind this. In that, the first reason a person likes to show off his ibadat is such that he can gain some sort of credibility within the mujtama, within the community. Such that tomorrow, if he was to corrupt anybody in their religion, corrupt anybody in their aqidah, people would not say that this one is a fitna maker or this one is a mischief maker. Why? Because they'll say, this guy's salat is like this, ato namaz parwa waro che, ato lamba kunut parwa waro che, ato humne kevit nam behkawe. Sahi lola. They say, this one's prayers is so beautiful, he can't deceive us. This one, he can't do fitna and fasad. The salat becomes a cover. The salat becomes a shield. That's why the Quran teaches us. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Al-Mu'min kaysul fitan. Mu'min is sharp in his intellect. He's able to see above and beyond. He's able to see through this. This is one. On the other hand, ahibba'i, many times to show off, riyah. The person who likes to show off, many times there is a psychological problem this guy faces, in that he's plagued with insecurity. He suffers from some sort of inferiority complex. He suffers from some sort of insecurity, and he needs to overcome this personal insecurity by coming across as somebody important within the community. And the only way this can be achieved is by pretending to be an abid or a zahid. You find that Amir al-Mu'mineen talks about this beautifully in Nahj al-Balagha. In the Nahj, in one of his khutbahs, Amir al-Mu'mineen speaks about the peacock. And he describes the creation of a peacock so beautifully. And he says that, to paraphrase parts of the sermon, But Amir al-Mu'mineen says, and the peacock is created in the most beautiful ways with a symmetric design on its wings. And when you look at the pattern on the wings, they look like they are threads of gold with jewels and emeralds. And when it flatters out its wing, all its beauty is exposed. But then Amir al-Mu'mineen says, when it spreads out its wings, it only does so out of insecurity for the thin legs that it has. The peacock is insecure about the shape of its feet. So in order to cover this insecurity, it spreads out its beauty. It attracts the attention of either the other peacocks or the other people or the other creatures or whatever it is towards the beauty of its wings in order to cover itself from the insecurity of its legs. And you find that a person who shows off many times is like this. They crave that attention. They don't have that satisfaction or that sense of fulfillment in their own personal or family or whatever lives it is. So they try and make up for this by seeking some sort of attention. And the best vehicle to use is this vehicle of irfan or zuhud, and to be an abid. Hence it is important, Ahibai, you find that you have within the hadith that the most important thing within the actions that we perform, the a'mal and the ibadat that we perform, niyyah. Al-a'malu bin niyyat. The validity of all the a'mal is dependent on the niyyah. If the niyyah is for ikhlasin lillah, then the thawab is upon that. If not, person is in khasara. So that's within the hadith. It is mentioned that the person wakes on the day of judgment in the mahshar, he stands, his scroll of deeds is given to him, he looks at the scroll of deeds. He says there is no thawab for the a'mal. Ajib. He goes and says, Ya Allah, I performed salat, I went for umrah, I went for hajj, I did this, I did that, and A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Ya Allah, none of the rewards is written for me in my deeds. Allah will say, you never did these deeds for me. You did to show off to Fulan. Now go to Fulan and ask Fulan to give you ajr and thawab yawmul qiyamah. It's very important, ikhwani. When a person does everything lillah, ahibba'i, trust me, it builds self-confidence. You know, many times you have within social problems, communal problems, people lack self-confidence. This self-confidence, lack of self-confidence, is because we are always trying to please others. Habibi, seeking the pleasure of other people is not important. Your important thing is pleasure of Allah. Allah and the Ahlul Bayt are happy with you. The dunya can do what it wants. This is what creates confidence inside of you. This is what protects us from nifaq and this and that. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. My kalam was not in this, but it became longer than what was necessary. Inshallah khair. So you find that the first sifat of the munafiq is that they show off in their a'mal, they're lazy in their prayer. And then you have those, we come to the hadith now. You have those who hide behind furu'uddin in order to cover up their kufr. They use furu'uddin to cover up kufr, yani to cover up their nifaq, you can say, or disbelief. Hadith is sharif, which is mentioned in Sahih Tirmidhi, yani it's not from the books of the Shia, from the books of the Amma. Hadith Tirmidhi, Hadith is Sharif, narrated by Sayyida Salama. Salama minu, Salama, the wife of the Prophet. Mu'mineen Salama. Hadith comes forward and says, قالت Salama, she says, I heard قال رسول الله or كان رسول الله يقول لا يحب علي بن أبي طالب منافق ولا يبغضه مؤمن. Salama says hadith in Sahih Tirmidhi. Salama al-Mu'mineen says, I heard Rasulullah say that a mu'min can never hate Ali ibn Abi Talib and the munafiq can never love Ali ibn Abi Talib. So therefore, the scale of nifaq is hub and bughd of Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Ya Ali. Suyuti, Jalaluddin Suyuti, Mufassir Kabir, big Mufassir from the Mufassirin of the Quran for the Amma, non-Shia. In his tafsir of Durrul Manthur, he mentions a hadith from the Sahabi Ibn Mas'ud. Sahabi Rasulullah Ibn Mas'ud. And this is found in this tafsir, the Durrul Manthur, one of the greatest tafsir for the Amma. In this hadith he mentions, on authority of Ibn Mas'ud, he says, ما كنا نعرف المنافقين في عهد رسول الله إلا ببغضهم علي بن أبي طالب. Ibn Mas'ud says, during the time of Rasulullah, we would not be able to recognize the munafiq except through their hatred for Ali ibn Abi Talib. Yani, a person could recite salat from morning to night. A person could fast from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. A person could do hajj. A person could do umrah. A person could give sadaqah. A person could give zakat. But if he had hatred in his heart for Amirul Mu'mineen, he was a munafiq. Not in our books. Abadan la. You find this reality is pointed out by Amirul Mu'mineen to Kumail ibn Ziyad. You find this dua Kumail is from the companions of Amirul Mu'mineen. He mentions that on one night in Masjid al-Kufa, Kumail was from the Hawariyin of Amirul Mu'mineen, close companion. And he would accompany and he would have these private seatings with Amirul Mu'mineen in Masjid al-Kufa until late into the night in the time of Salatul Fajr, and he would accompany Amirul Mu'mineen. You know even how this dua Kumail reached us. Shay'un ajib and gharib. How Kumail actually got Amirul Mu'mineen to dictate the dua to him, dua Khidr. In any case, Kumail says, one day I was walking with Amirul Mu'mineen in the darkness of the night, late night. Majority of the people of Kufa have gone to sleep. He says, I was walking behind Amirul Mu'mineen for this adab and ihtaram and akhlaq. The person who knows the position of Amirul Mu'mineen. He didn't say I was walking side by side with Amirul Mu'mineen. Abadan la. A slave is always behind the Mawla. He says, I was walking behind Amirul Mu'mineen. And he says, as we were walking past some houses, I heard the beautiful recitation of Quran. From behind the wall, from behind the doors, I heard the beautiful recitation of Quran. Man who has stayed up in the middle of the night, reciting Quran in a beautiful voice, and in a voice that is hazeen, a voice that is filled with grief. And as he was reciting the Quran, he was crying. Baba, this is a daraja that is difficult to achieve, huh? To open the Quran. And when you're reading the Quran and to see ayat of Jahannam, to cry over this, is a daraja. Sometimes just bain al-qawsain, between brackets, I have to ask myself, when Allah speaks about Jahannam and the punishment of Jahannam, does it even have an impact on my heart? We read it like we're reading a storybook and yallah. This person was crying to show you daraja. This person was crying. Kumail says, while we passed by this house, I thought to myself, what a beautiful voice and what a great mu'min this person might be. He said, as soon as I thought this to myself, Amirul Mu'mineen turned around and he said to me, "O Kumail, do not hasten in judging whether this person is a mu'min. Do not hasten to judge. Do not hasten. Do not be too quick in assuming that this person is a mu'min." Kumail says, I became shocked. Amirul Mu'mineen is aware of what I am thinking. He didn't say it out loud. Mawla has the ghaib of the unseen. Imam knows what we are thinking. Ma'rifah. Kumail says, I was shocked. Amirul Mu'mineen knows what's in my heart. And more than that, a person who stays up in the middle of the night reciting Quran in such a voice, Amirul Mu'mineen tells me, don't judge him to be a mu'min. Kumail says, I kept quiet, the night went on. Months later, Kumail fights alongside or under the command of Amirul Mu'mineen in the battle of Naharwan, of the Khawarij. After the battle is over, you find that, Battle of Naharwan is where Maulana Abul Fadl al-Abbas got his, this is one of the first battles that he fought in, one of the early battles that he fought in, together with his father Amirul Mu'mineen. And it is in the Battle of Naharwan that Amirul Mu'mineen got the title Sab'ul Qantara. This title, laqab, which is given to Abul Fadl, Sab'ul Qantara, he derived it, he got it from the Battle of Naharwan. Sab'ul Qantara, yani the lion of the bridge. And that day the kuffar, the Khawarij of Naharwan saw a zalzala at the hands of Abul Fadl they had never seen before. In any case, after the Battle of Naharwan, Amirul Mu'mineen is walking with Kumail. And as they pass through the bodies of these kuffar who are sent to Nar Jahannam wa Bi'sa al-Masir, Amirul Mu'mineen stops at one of these corpses and he says, Ya Kumail, do you remember that night in Kufa when you heard the recitation of Quran and you said what a great mu'min this person would be? Kumail said yes. And Amirul Mu'mineen said to him, Kumail, do you remember how I told you do not be too quick to assume that he's a mu'min? Kumail said yes. Amirul Mu'mineen points at him and says, this is that person. Qari of the Quran, reciter of the Quran in the darkness of the night, person who used to cry while weeping the Quran. Look at his natija, nifaq. He became an enemy of Amirul Mu'mineen, fought against Amirul Mu'mineen in the Battle of Naharwan. He used the Quran as a cover, as a guide to deceive people. And in our this day and age, we see the same thing or no? Nawasib, enemies of Ahlul Bayt, but memorizers of Quran. Don't be surprised. We have to learn to be smarter, to see beyond this. Do you know how many people who had memorized the Quran fought against Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura? Do you know how many people who have memorized the Quran will fight against Imam al-Hujjah upon the Dhuhr? Kalam tawil in this. If we have a chance, we will explain some of it. But the scale of nifaq, the way to identify a munafiq, is through their love or their hatred for Amirul Mu'mineen. This is on one hand. On the other hand, you have sifat of a munafiq. If we go a little bit over our time tonight, inshallah, forgive me, but the topic is important and the message has to be delivered. Amirul Mu'mineen in Nahjul Balagha, in one of his sermons, speaks about the sifat of the munafiq. How many sifat we have? Number one, kusala fi salat, lazy in their salat. Number two, they like to show off. Number three, these are people who bear hatred in their heart for Amirul Mu'mineen. They could be doing all sorts of ibadah. That ibadah doesn't matter so long as they have hatred for Amirul Mu'mineen. Number three. Number four, fourth sifat is what? Fourth sifat of a munafiq is what? Nahjul Balagha, Amirul Mu'mineen says, in his khutbah وَرَجُلٌ munafiq. The khutbah is about how there were differences within the hadith that we have received from Rasulullah. So khutbah on its own, and every khutbah of Amirul Mu'mineen deserves a lecture. But we take the point that is relevant to our lecture. He says, وَرَجُلٌ munafiq مُتَسَنِّعْ بِالْإِسْلَامِ. Person who is a munafiq, who pretends to have Islam, لا يتأثم ولا يتحرج. He doesn't care when it comes to committing sins. وَيَكْذِبُ عَلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ مُتَعَمِّدًا. One sifat, one way of recognizing a munafiq is that he attributes lies to Rasulullah on purpose. مُتَعَمِّدًا. During the time of Rasulullah, people attributed lies to Rasulullah. They would come and they said, Qala Rasulullah, when Rasulullah never did Rasulullah say this hadith. They used to fabricate hadith. They used to say lies. Rasulullah said this when Rasulullah has never said this. Sometimes you see even in our communities, in the environment in which we live, somebody comes and tell you, you know, Fulan said so and so. You go and you ask Fulan never even said this. So it's not something hard to comprehend, yani. We see this every day. People used to come and they used to fabricate lies on behalf of Rasulullah. Amirul Mu'mineen says, recognize the munafiq through the lies that they attribute to Rasulullah. They used to fabricate hadith. So now, to join these 2 points together, Sayyida Fatimah al-Zahra in the Khutbah Fadakiyya says to the Ansar and the Muhajirin, قَدْ ظَهَرَتْ or ظَهَرَتْ فِيكُمْ حَسِيكَةُ النِّفَاقِ. This hypocrisy that was hidden in your heart has become manifest. And over here Amirul Mu'mineen says that one of the characters or one of the qualities of a munafiq is that he fabricates hadith. And this had happened to such an extent that during the lifetime of Rasulullah, he came out in Masjidun Nabawi and he said to the people, Man kadhaba alayhi falyatabawwa maq'adahu fin nar or minan nar. Rasulullah, hadith is found in Sahih Muslim. Rasulullah came out to the masjid and said to his companions, from now, whoever attributes a lie to me, whoever fabricates a hadith about me, yani says something which I have not even said, he should confirm his seat in Jahannam. We have to understand what was happening during the time of Rasulullah. So Sayyidah Zahra says over here that you people are munafiqs, your nifaq has become apparent. Over here Amirul Mu'mineen is saying one of the sifat of a munafiq is that he attributes lies to Rasulullah. And on that side Rasulullah says in his life, the one who spreads lies about me, who fakely attributes a hadith towards me, should confirm his seat in Jahannam. You understand all these 3 points? We move forward. Keep these in your mind. Khutbah Fadakiyya. The land of Fadak is taken away from Sayyidah Zahra. You could say in this day and age, employees. She had servants or employees. She had people in charge, managers, to take care of the land of Fadak. The land of Fadak was not a garden. Abadan la. Was a vast piece of land the size of a village. The managers or the caretakers of the land of Fadak, appointed by Sayyidah Zahra, are removed from the land of Fadak, and ownership of this property is seized. Sayyidah Zahra asks Abu Bakr, on what basis did you take Fadak away from me? He replies by saying, I heard a narration from Rasulullah. I heard a narration from Rasulullah. He says, I bear witness, yani qasam, by Allah. I bear witness that I heard a narration from Rasulullah where he said, نحن معشر الأنبياء لا نورث ذهبا ولا فضة ولا دارا ولا إقارا. He says, I heard the hadith. This hadith is as per Sharh of the Nahjul Balagha by Ibn Abil Hadid al-Mu'tazili. غير Shi'i, not Shi'i, Mu'tazili. He says, I heard this hadith by Rasulullah. Abu Bakr says, where Rasulullah said, we, the ma'shar of the Anbiya, we the Anbiya, do not leave behind any inheritance. We do not leave behind gold, we do not leave behind silver, not land and not a house. In Sahih Muslim, the hadith which is narrated is that Abu Bakr says, I heard from Rasulullah a hadith that says, نحن معشر الأنبياء لا نورث ما تركناه صدقة. It says, we do not leave behind inheritance. Whatever of our property that is left is sadaqah. As soon as he said this, as soon as he uttered this and made the claim of this hadith, Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen retorted back and she replied back to him immediately. Then have you not heard the verse of the Quran? To paraphrase, she says, have you not heard the verse of the Quran which says, وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانُ دَاوُودَ? Did you not read the verse of the Quran that Sulaiman inherited from Dawood? Have you not come across the verse of the Quran where in Surah Al-Maryam, Nabi Zakaria says, فَحَبْلِ مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا يَرِثُنِي وَيَرِثُنَ آلِ يَعْقُوبَ. Nabi Zakaria within Surah Al-Maryam in the Quran says that Zakaria asked Allah to grant him a son. Why? Such that he may inherit him and inherit Ali Yaqub. Mushkil ahibai. You have a person who claims he has heard a hadith from Rasulullah that the Anbiya do not leave behind any inheritance. And over here, Sayyidah Fatima Zahra is saying, where did you get this hadith from? Because there are two verses in the Quran that establish that the Anbiya leave back inheritance for each other. And she retorted back to him in another part of her khutbah. She says, Yabna Abi Quhafa or Ibn Abu Quhafa, is it fair that you inherit your father and I do not inherit my father? Where is the justice? And you find over here, the reason why Sayyidah Zahra, Ahibai, our goal is to establish haqq. We are not interested in flaring any sort of sectarian tensions and fitna. Abadan la. Our job is to establish haqq with burhan and with dalil. And to establish the right of Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen. Because we live in a time of shubuhat and tashkik from every direction in regards to our aqidah. The reason Sayyidah Zahra was absolutely sharp and staunch in the manner that she confronted Abu Bakr in the khutbah fadakiyya, because through the fabrication of this hadith, yani through the attestation of this hadith, the claim of this hadith, there are four major problems. It was going to lead a precedent for four major issues. Number one is that a precedent would be set whereby the perception would be that Rasulullah contradicts the Quran. Which is a very dangerous precedent to be set within the Ummah. Is it possible for Rasulullah to contradict the Quran? One has to be right. Either it is the hadith of Ibn Abi Quhafa or the Quran. Because this hadith, according to him, it says Rasulullah doesn't inherit. The Quran says, no, the Anbiya inherit. And it has given us the example of Dawood and Sulaiman. It has given us the example of Zakaria and Yahya. One is lying, either the Quran wal ayadu billah or Rasulullah. Mushkil. Number two, when we know that this hadith is fabricated, then what happens is, the consequence is that a precedent is being set for the leader of a Muslim nation to fabricate hadith in order to justify dhulm. And we see the consequences of this till this day and age. Sahih or not? Number 3, it set a precedent that the leader of the Islamic nation can rule and govern over the people by contradicting the Quran. This was something that had never been seen before. Because the only leader before Saqifa over Islam was who? Rasulullah. And the rule of Rasulullah was in compliance with the teachings of the Quran. This was the first time in the history of Islam after the martyrdom of Rasulullah that a leader of the Islamic nation in the name of Islam is passing judgment by contradicting the Quran. Because he said the Anbiya do not leave inheritance, and the Quran says yes, the Anbiya leave back inheritance. Sayyidah Zahra was not fighting over her own land. La. She was looking to preserve something much greater. Ahibba'i, this precedent that Sayyidah Zahra was trying to stop in Saqifa, do we not see it happen today? Yes or no? Do we not see today Islamic countries ruling in the name of Islam, but they trample every value within the Quran? Sahih Lola. Who started this precedent? Sayyidat Zahra was absolutely staunch because she was able to foresee the consequences of what is going to happen. Number 4, she said to him, do you think am antum a'lamu بخصوص القرآن وعامه من أبي ومن ابن عمي? Do you think that you have more knowledge about the verses of the Quran more than my father and more than Amirul Mu'mineen? Meaning what? Sayyidat Zahra in this khutbah fadakiyya made a stance that you people do not forget that the most learned person in regards to the Quran was my father and Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. The minute you remove Amirul Mu'mineen, this precedent that you are starting is going to cause chaos for the ummah. See what happened down the line of history. Did people not oppose Amirul Mu'mineen when it came to tafsir of the Quran? Did people not oppose Amirul Mu'mineen when it came to ahkam fiqhiyya? Look at the problems that we suffer in the world today. Islamophobia has magnified, has been propelled in different parts of the world because the tafsir of the Quran is taken from those people other than Amirul Mu'mineen. Look at all these people who justify terrorism and violence in the name of the Quran, because they take the interpretation of the Quran from other than Amirul Mu'mineen. And hence, ahibba'i, when we are trying to search for truth, we go and we search for the source of corruption in Islam. This was a jihad of Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen. We say we're from the Shi'as of Fatima. Then we have to familiarize ourselves with the revolution of Fatima, to be able to establish haqq for ourselves, leave other people, for ourselves, for our children, for our youth. Do not compromise on your faith and your aqidah. Dunya is a dunya of few days. We're moving towards an alam which is much more grand. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Insha'Allah, Baqiyatul Kalam, Insha'Allah, over the coming nights if Allah grants us tawfiq. You find that it is the dhulm that was committed in Saqifa that set the precedent for the dhulm that happened in Karbala. Which is why the narrations mention that Imam as-Sajjad wept for all his life after returning back from Sham. Allah, for the years that he lived, he wept every day over the tragedy of Karbala. One of his companions, they say that every time food was put in front of Imam Sajjad would look at the food, he would look at the water, he would start crying. Every time Imam Sajjad went to the market, he passed the place of the butchers, he would see them slaughtering sheep and slaughtering chicken. Imam Sajjad would start to cry. They would say to him, "Why are you crying?" He says, "When I see you slaughter the animals, I remember my father in Karbala." Every time food was put in front of him, he says, "I remember the hunger and the thirst of the children." Whenever water was brought to him, he remembers the cries, al-atash of Sakina and the rest of the children in Karbala. One day his companion asked him, he says, "Yabna Rasulullah, for how long will you cry? For how long will you cry?" He says, "Yabna Rasulullah, Allah has granted your father Shahada, and before that he granted your uncle and your grandfather Shahada. This is an honor for you. Do not cry, Yabna Rasulullah, that your fathers and grandfathers are martyrs. This is written for you from the Qadr and the Qada of Allah." Imam Sajjad turns around and he says to him, "I agree that our men were to be martyred, and it's an honor." He says, "But also," he says to the servant, he says, "Oh man," to his companion, he says, "Oh man, but tell me, is it from fairness even that our women should be taken as prisoners?" Allah. Allah. The dhulm that happened on the women. When a man is oppressed, there is no justification. But when a man is oppressed, we can say because he's a man, he has got strength, maybe he would be able to bear it. Maybe he will be able to sustain it. But when a woman is beaten in public, Allahu Akbar. The narrations mention that on the 11th of Muharram, when they were removing the women from Karbala, and they had tied them with their ropes, Shimar al-La'in made the women pass through the Katlaga. He made them pass through the Maidan, because he said, "I want the women to see the bodies of the Shuhada. I want their grief. I want them to hurt even more. I want their pain to increase." They said, "The daughters will die out of grief." He said, "Let them see the headless bodies of their fathers and their brothers." The narration mentions the women who are brought into the Katlaga. They see the headless body of Imam al-Hussein. Sayyida Sukaina says, "Every time we cried, Shimar al-Lain would come. Some of them would slap us. Some of them would whip us on our backs." Hibai, these tears that you cry for Imam al-Hussein, these tears are a ni'mah. Because you sit here and you can cry and nobody will stop you. Nobody will insult you. Nobody will slap you for crying. But that Sukaina, she sees the body of her father in front of her, Mazluma, she cannot cry. They cry, they slap her and they beat her. The narrations used to say, it is mentioned that Sayyidah Sukaina, at one time she was slapped by Umar ibn Sa'ad. She was slapped so hard she cried out, "Ya Fatima, Allah." I asked myself, why did she cry out, "Ya Fatima"? And to me it seems that when Sayyidah Sukaina was slapped, she remembered how her mother Fatima was slapped in Medina. Allah. The narrations mention that the women were brought into Sham, into the Darbar of Sham. The hadith and the makatil, they mention that Arbabul Makatil, the scholars who have mentioned these makatil, they say that when the women were brought into Sham, all the women, they were tied with one single rope. All the women were tied with one single rope. There was a single rope that was tied around their necks. And they say the way that the women were lined up, between two adults there would be one child. So Sada-e-Zainab says, the rope that was around my neck was then connected to the rope around the neck of Sayyidah Sakina. An adult, the height of an adult and the height of a child. Sayyidah says, had I stood up, I would have choked Sakina with this rope. They say, so the women, when they entered into Sham, Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra had to enter Sham into a position of ruku, such that she does not choke Sakina. Allah, Allah. The heads of Imam al-Hussein are raised on a spear, and the heads of Abu al-Fadil and the rest of the Shuhada. The heads were paraded inside of the Darbar. This is a hard part of a Maktal to recite. And the last with this, the Majlis Tamam. The narrations mention that the blessed head of Imam al-Hussein was placed on a spear, and they are being brought into the Darbar. It's been paraded. The people of Kufa, the people of Sham were laughing and were celebrating and pointing fingers at the women as they were inside. As the head of Imam al-Hussein was brought, there was one elderly woman. She comes to Shimr al-La'ir and she says to him, "Oh Shimr, whose head is this?" Shimr says, "This is the head of a Khariji." Allahu Akbar. He says, "Which Khariji? What is his name?" He says, "This is the head of a person called Hussein ibn Ali." The old woman says, "Hussein, the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib?" Shimr says, "Yes." She says, "Oh man, Ali ibn Abi Talib killed my relatives in the battle of Naharwan. I want to take revenge from Ali ibn Abi Talib. I want to take revenge from this head." Shimr says, "Do what you want." The woman says, because the head was on a spear, she says, "Bring the head closer to the house." The narration mentions the woman went to the top of the house on the roof and she picked up a stone. The elderly woman pointed the stone. She threw the stone on the head of Imam al-Hussein with such force. Imam Sajjad says the head of Imam al-Hussein fell from the spear onto the ground and blood coming down his forehead. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. اللهم يا رب محمد عجل فرج آل محمد. يا رب محمد احفظ غيبة محمد. يا رب محمد انتقم لابنة محمد. ماتم فاطمة ماتم حسين.
يا حسين 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 يا حسين
صحرا مدینے رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صحرا مدینے رہ گئی، تفسیر وہ حیا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، تصویر فاطمہ کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، اکبر کی لاڈلی کو شہ نے کہا یہ آ کر حالات دیکھتے ہیں کرب و بلا میں جا کر، آئیں گے لینے اکبر، آئیں گے لینے اکبر، قسمت نے کر وفا کی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، ہوتا جو میرے بس میں تنہا نہ چھوڑتا میں، پانوں کی لاڈلی کے دل کو نہ توڑتا میں، منظور حق جو ہوتا، منظور حق جو ہوتا، یوں منہ نہ موڑتا میں، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، بھائی کو خط میں لکھا آجا میرے ویر، پاؤ گے پھر کہاں سے کچھ روز کا ہے جیون، بھائی کو بھاگ گئی ہے، بھائی کو بھاگ گئی ہے، کیوں خاک کربلا کی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی، صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، چھوڑا تھا ایک دن جب شبیر ہر ایک کو حسینہ جیسے کہ لٹ رہی ہو، جیسے کہ لٹ رہی ہو، جاگیر فاطمہ کی مرضی یہ خدا کی صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی تھی یہ خدا کی جیو واقعی جیو جیو مدینہ رہ گئی۔ آغوش فاطمہ میں اصغر ہم کے آئے، بیماری رو کے بولی تم بھی ہوئے پر آئے، کچھ علاج تم ہی رکھ لو، محروم التجا کی مرضی یہ خدا کی صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی، مرضی یہ خدا کی صغرا مدینہ رہ گئی۔ قابل حکم میں کلام پیش کر رہا ہوں، ظاہر الوداعی پرسا ہے آج، تو سب مل کے ماتم اسی طریقے سے کریں گے۔ لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا، جیو جیو ماتمی جیو سلامت رہو، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، وفا کو ناز ہے جس پر، وفا کو ناز ہے جس پر، وہ با وفا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، علی کا عہد جوانی پلٹ کے آیا ہے، اسی لیے پر جبریل تھر تھرایا ہے، علم کا نور زمین سے فلک پہ جایا ہے، زمین پہ پھر ابو طالب کا، زمین پہ پھر ابو طالب کا نقش پا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات جیو مدینہ جیو کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار 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 کربلا آیا، جری کا سینہ ہے یا علم کا مدینہ ہے، علی کے تاج شجاعت کا یہ نگینہ ہے، سکینہ پیاسی ہے دل مثل آب گینا ہے، یہ فرات علمدار کربلا آیا لب 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 فرات علمدار کربلا آیا
اسے ہوا میں نمی کی رمق گوارا نہیں قدم درائی میں یہ سو کہ اتارا نہیں قبول پانی کا غازی کو استعارہ نہیں بغیر تیغ وہ کرتا بغیر تیغ وہ کرتا ہوا ولا آیا لب فرات علمدار کربلا 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 آیا کرائی قبضے میں آنکھوں میں پیاس بچوں کی لکھی ہوئی ہے پریرے پہ آس بچوں کی ہے فکر غازی کو ہر دم اداس بچوں کی وہ خیمہ گاہ کو مڑ مڑ کے وہ خیمہ گاہ کو مڑ مڑ کے دیکھتا آیا لب فرات علمدار کربلا 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 آیا نظر جمائے سکینہ علم کو دیکھتی تھی دلا سے بچوں کو دیتی تھی اور یہ کہتی تھی دلے کا پانی سبھی کو مٹے گی تشیہ لبی یہ خشک کودے بھریں گے یہ خشک کودے بھریں گے وہ مرحلہ آیا لب فرات علمدار کربلا 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 آیا یہ کیا ہوا کہ سکینہ نے آہ بھر کے کہا علم چچا کا پھوپھی کیوں نظر نہیں آتا کہ پھینک دیا اپنے ہاتھ سے کودا ادھر سے فضل بھی کرتا ادھر سے فضل بھی کرتا ہوا بھکا آیا لب فرات علمدار
فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا۔
حسین کا کوئی ناصر نہ کوئی ہمدم تھا، ریحان آدمی خیموں میں شور ماتم تھا، علم کے گرد علمدار کا جو ماتم تھا، زمین پہ گری آئے زینب، زمین پہ گری آئے زینب، بے زلزلہ آیا، لب فرات
علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا، لب فرات علمدار کربلا آیا۔
ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا گھڑیاں گڑھ دی رہ گئی، ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا گھڑیاں گڑھ دی رہ گئی، ہے زینب
پھرتی موت دیا،
جیو شاہ جی جیو جیو سلامت رہیے، دی رہ گئی، ہے زینب
پھرتی موت دیا گھڑیاں گڑھ دی رہ گئی، ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا
گھڑیاں گڑھ دی رہ گئی، ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا
گھڑیاں گڑھ دی رہ گئی،
نب کے در خیمے دا ہے، نب کے در خیمے دا ٹکرا مرندی رہ گئی، ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا گھڑیاں
گڑھ دی رہ گئی، ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا گھڑیاں گڑھ دی رہ گئی، ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا گھڑیاں گڑھ دی رہ گئی، ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا گھڑیاں گڑھ دی رہ گئی، نب کے در خیمے دا ہے، نب کے در خیمے دا ٹکرا مرندی رہ گئی، زینب پھرتی موت دیا گھڑیاں گڑھ دی رہ گئی، ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا گھڑیاں گڑھ دی رہ گئی، ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا گھڑیاں گڑھ دی رہ گئی، ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا گھڑیاں گڑھ دی رہ گئی، ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا گھڑیاں گڑھ دی رہ گئی، ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا گھڑیاں رہ گئی، ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا گھڑیاں گڑھ دی رہ گئی، ہے زینب پھرتی موت دیا ذبح کیوں کرتے ہو اس کو پیاسا، مصطفیٰ کا یہ تو ہے نوازا، ایک بہن مقتل میں ہے، ایک بہن مقتل میں فریاد کرتی رہ گئی دی موت دیا کرتی رہ گئی
دی موت دیا
کرتی رہ گئی ہے زینب دی موت جیو مانوی جیو سلامت رہو مولا آباد رکھے آپ لوگوں کو ہے زینب
دی موت دیا کریا کرندی رہ گئی ہے زینب دی موت دیا
جیو مانوی جیو نہ حسین کماری واسطائے کلی بھیڑی جائے آسرائے پیر دے قاتل نو پیر دے قاتل نو مل کا کرندی رہ گئی ہے زینب
دی موت دیا گھڑیاں کرندی رہ گئی
ہے زینب
دی موت دیا گھڑیاں دی موت دیا گھڑیاں کرندی رہ گئی ہے زینب دی موت دیا گھڑیاں کرندی رہ گئی ہے زینب دی موت دیا گھڑیاں کرندی رہ گئی ہے زینب دی موت دیا گھڑیاں کرندی رہ گئی
کر دیا قرآن کو پارا پارا شیخ کا سر لینے پہ دائے آجا لوٹ کے آجا قاضی لوٹ کے آجا قاضی زینب بلاتی رہ گئی ہے
زینب دی موت دیا گھڑیاں کرندی رہ گئی ہے زینب دی موت دیا گھڑیاں کرندی رہ گئی ہے زینب دی موت دیا گھڑیاں کرندی رہ
حسنا روندے گل مکویندی ایہو گال جگر تو کھا گئی جے بیڑی دے ہومن ویر 18 انو ٹرن دی کیڑی لوڑے ویر دے والا جی حد شمردہ سامنے بھیڑی دے آئے کسدہ اڑتے ماضی آوے اڑتے ماضی آوے ول ول ہٹندی رہ گئی ہے
زینب دی موت دیا گھڑیاں کرندی رہ گئی ہے زینب دی موت دیا گھڑیاں کرندی رہ گئی ہے زینب دی موت دیا گھڑیاں کرندی رہ گئی ہے زینب دی موت دیا گھڑیاں کرندی رہ گئی ہے زینب دی موت دیا گھڑیاں کرندی رہ گئی ہے زینب دی موت دیا گھڑیاں کرندی رہ گئی ہے زینب دی موت دیا گھڑیاں
جیو معافی جیو سیمی سیمی شیکی ننی دختر جب شقین چھینے اس کے گوہر بابا بابا کہہ کر بابا بابا کہہ کر بچی بھی لگتی رہ گئی
موت دیا گھڑیاں لڑندی رہ گئی ہے زینب پھر دی موت دیا گھڑیاں لڑندی رہ گئی ہے زینب پھر دی موت دیا گھڑیاں لڑندی رہ گئی ہے زینب پھر دی موت دیا گھڑیاں لڑندی رہ گئی ہے زینب پھر دی موت دیا گھڑیاں لڑندی رہ گئی ہے زینب پھر دی موت دیا گھڑیاں لڑندی رہ گئی
اے سہیل عشقوں کی یہ صدا ہے ظلم و اس سے بڑھ کے اور کیا ہے بنت ساق یہ کوثر ہے بنت ساق یہ کوثر صحرا میں پیاسی رہ گئی ہے زینب پھر دی موت دیا گھڑیاں لڑندی رہ گئی ہے زینب
پھر دی موت دیا گھڑیاں لڑندی رہ گئی ہے زینب پھر دی موت دیا گھڑیاں
جیسا کہ مجھے حکم ملا تھا کہ ایک نوحہ پڑھ چکا ہوں یہاں پر ابھی 3-4 مجلس پہلے تعمیل حکم میں مومنین کی فرمائش آپ کی خدمت میں الوداعی پرسہ جو پڑھیں گے ہم مولا امام یا حسن یا حسین کا اس سے پہلے اس شہزادی کا نوحہ قبلہ نے مسائب بھی پڑھے اس بچی کا نوحہ میں احمد بھائی سے جذبستہ گزارش کروں گا کہ اگر یہ لائٹ بند کر دیں اس لیے کہ وہ نوحہ اس بچی کا ہے جس کو زندان میں قید کیا گیا آپ لوگوں نے وہ زندان دیکھا ہے وہ زندان اب بھی اتنا تاریک ہے کہ ہاتھ کو ہاتھ دکھائی نہیں دیتا آپ لوگ اے سی میں ہیں ماتم کر رہے ہیں ٹھنڈا پانی بھی پی رہے ہیں اس بچی نے جب پانی کا سوال کیا نا اس کے رخسار پر ایک تماچا لگا ہے اور اس نے فرات کی طرف رک کر کے کہا چچا عباس اے مومنو جب مجلس شفیع اور پیاسی ہے سکی بچوں کا تمہیں واسطہ یہ بھول نہ جانا پیاسی ہے سکینہ ارے یہ سوچ کے جی کھول کے تم عشق بہانا پیاسی ہے سکینہ ارے مجلس جہاں ہوگی ارے آتی ہے سکینہ ارے پانی ملا بھی پیاسی ہے سکینہ پیاسی ہے سکینہ اللہ احمد بھائی جتنے بھی احباب ہیں میرے یہاں پہ سوزن مجلس میں بیٹھے کھڑے مولا آپ لوگوں کو شام لے کر جانا شام جانا یہاں سے 2 تحفے ضرور لے کر جانا ایک تو اس بیوی کے لیے چادر کا تحفہ اور ایک اس بچی کے لیے بالیوں کا تحفہ ضرور لے کر جانا اللہ کرے آئے کبھی ایسا زمانہ ارے ہو شام کے زندان کی طرف آپ کا جانا ارے پھٹ جائے گا دل دیکھ کے وہ غم کا ٹھکانا ارے بے حال ہوئی قبر میں ارے سوتی ہے سکینہ ارے پانی نہ ملا بھی پیاسی ہے سکینہ छाने लगा बन में अंधेरा, ज़ैनब ने किया भाई के लाशे पे ये नौहा। अरे क्या तुमने सकीना को कहीं देखा है भैया? अरे एक कूदा लिए दश्त में आई है सकीना, अरे पानी ना मिला आज भी प्यासी है सकीना, प्यासी है सकीना। ये जुल्म भी कमसिल पे सितमगारों ने ढाया। जो हमने शाम गए और शाम में वो जिंदान देखा है, वो अभी इतना तारीख है कि अगर लाइट बंद कर दी जाए तो हाथ को हाथ दिखाई देते। ये जुल्म भी कमसिल पे सितमगारों ने ढाया। अरे रखा है उसे कैद वहां पर को तन्हा, अरे रहता है जहां दिल में कयामत का अंधेरा। अरे डर डर के ना मर जाए, अरे अकेली है सकीना, अरे पानी ना मिला आज भी प्यासी है सकीना, प्यासी है सकीना। दुर्रों की अज़ियत तड़पती है हसीना। सकीना की उम्र 4 साल की है, तुम्हारे रोने पर पाबंदी नहीं है। अब जो मैं मिसरे पढ़ूंगा, सकीना की उम्र 4 साल की है। 4 साल की बच्ची देखिए और उस पर शिविर का ताजियाना देखिए। जब उसके ताजियाना लगता ना, वो फरहाद की तरफ रुक करके कहती चाचा अब्बास। दुर्रों की अज़ियत से तड़पती है हसीना, दुखता है बदन सिसकियां लेती है सकीना। जो बच्ची बाप के फूल जैसे सीने पे सोने की आदत थी, उसे फिर सीना लगे। दुर्रों की अज़ियत से तड़पती है हसीना, दुखता है बदन सिसकियां लेती है सकीना। अरे सोने के लिए पास नहीं बाबा का सीना, अरे एक कोने में सहमी हुई अरे बैठी है सकीना, अरे पानी ना मिला भी प्यासी है सकीना, प्यासी है सकीना। या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन, जियो माती जियो। या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन, जियो जियो। या हुसैन 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 या हुसैन। मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन, मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन, मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन, या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन। वो आबिदे बीमार था, वो आबिदे बीमार था, चलने से जो लाचार था, चलने से जो लाचार था। और शाम का बाजार اور شام کا بازار تھا اور مصطفیٰ کی بیٹیاں مولا حق امام یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین 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 شبیر کی وہ لاڈلی شبیر کی وہ لاڈلی سینے پہ جو شاہ پلی سینے پہ جو شاہ پلی جس کی ابا بن میں جلی جس کی ابا بن میں جلی منہ پر تماچوں کے نشان مولا حق امام یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین 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 وہ عابد بیمار تھا وہ عابد بیمار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا اور شام کا بازار تھا اور شام کا بازار تھا اور مصطفیٰ کی بیٹیاں مولا یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا سب مل کے دونوں ہاتھ بلند کر کے نعرہ ہے علی اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد وعجل